Okay, let's start it. Let's start here. Hey everyone, welcome back to another powerful episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, the podcast where we explore the transformation, resilience, and the inner work that leads to a thriving life. I'm your host Avik, and today's episode is going to be a deep dive into how we can turn our darkest moments into our greatest strengths. My guest today is someone who truly embodies this philosophy, Michael Harris. So, welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, Avik.
Lovely, lovely. So, Michael, like before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Michael is a four-time best-selling author, business coach, yoga teacher, lifelong entrepreneur. So, his book, Falling Down, Getting Up, tells his gripping story of overcoming the near fatal health issues, addictions, and the self doubt to create a life that is filled with purpose, impact, and the adventure. But beyond his own journey, Michael has dedicated his life to helping others transform their challenges into the catalysts for the growth. So, whether through coaching, publishing books, or teaching people how to step into their power, that's really great, right? So, this episode is for anyone who's ever felt stuck, lost, or maybe weighed down by life's setbacks. So, how do you change your mind, shift your story, and create a new path forward? So, Michael is here to help us uncover everything. So, welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you. Again, it's wonderful to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this topic. There's so much swirling energy in the world right now that I think recognizing our own self is super important these days.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Michael, like your story is one of the true transformation, I have to say. Like you have faced near-death experiences, the addictions, the moments where it would have been easier to give up than keep going. So, if you can take us back to that moment when everything was, I mean, everything changed for you.
Yeah, I was 12 years old, Avik, when I had a near fatal water skiing accident. And Um, initially, they thought I was just kind of bruised and beat up a little bit. I had no punctures or anything other than scratches. But the next day, I was in the hospital, and about 2 weeks later, I was waking up from a coma. And the coma, you know, for those listeners that have not been in a coma before, most people haven't, or for those that have, and I've talked to many people that have, is I had some awareness of the people around me. Somebody would say, squeeze my thumb, and I couldn't squeeze their thumb, but I knew that they were there. And then I
Mm.
came to a place to where I knew that I had left my body, and I found myself in a really wonderful garden area filled with spirit and filled with love. And I was all set to stay there. And I don't know everything that was said to me, Avi. And at the same time, as I started going back to my body, I reached out and I said, I don't want to go. And they said, you're not through yet. You have to go back. This is
Mm.
1971. So it was a long time ago that this happened. And they didn't tell me how long I needed to go back for, but I guess still need it here. So I'm still here.
Mm. Understood. That's awesome. Yeah. And that moment of realization is something like so many people wait for, but kind of often fear as well. So in your experience, why do so many people stay stuck in that suffering or maybe in their suffering even when they know that they need to change?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's multiple reasons that that happens. I know for me, I actually, although I had a belief in God, universal power, higher power, however somebody wants to describe it, I became quite upset and quite angry with God that I was sent back. And so those resentments really went deep into me, really created a lot of energy blocks and, a lot of disturbance within me, that, it was really, really hard to let go of. And I ended up diving into drinking, very shortly thereafter as a kid, and I struggled with that for years until I was 27 years old, and I ended up in the hospital again. This time I had blocked arteries in my legs. My right leg was 100% blocked, my left leg was 65% blocked. And the doctor said that they would have to amputate and I would not survive very long. Well, that wasn't going to work for me, Avik. It's just like I did not want to die. I did not want to lose my legs. And they did do a couple of surgeries on my legs, on my popliteal arteries. Essentially, it's bypass surgery in the legs rather than the heart. But I was still walking on a cane. I could walk maybe 10 feet, and they wanted to do more surgeries. And I said no, and I left AMA against medical advice, left the hospital on my cane, not knowing what I was going to do. A little shortly thereafter, about 6 months after that, I ended up in a place called the Pritikin Longevity Center in Santa Monica. It was at the end of Ocean and Pico, really pretty close to the Santa Monica Pier. And I had a doctor there, and this is the first time that I heard this, and I think this is really, really important, if you're listening, is, my doctors, my surgeons, they were really good technical surgeons, yet this doctor down there said, just get up and walk. And I said, what? He said, just get up and walk. He says, go out to the boardwalk and start walking. He says, if it hurts, sit down, get up, walk 12 more feet. Sit down, get up, walk 13 more feet, etc. So by doing that process, in 2 weeks, I was able to walk 2 miles without pain. In 2 weeks. And, the doctors just said, get up, don't worry about it, and just go walk. And I had not heard that before. I didn't know much about anything, Avik. I didn't know about yoga. I didn't know about anything, you know. And I started yoga then in 87, and it changed my life. And here I am 37, almost 38 years later, Avik, and I walk wherever I want. I climb mountains, I ski, I hike, and I bike. And I also throw in two other things real briefly. I didn't realize how powerful that don't worry about it, forget about it, just get up and walk really was. And then I started hearing somebody named Dr. John Sarno, which is really a mind-body psychophysiological disorder guy that talked about most pain is psychophysiological. And he would say, don't worry about it, forget about it, just live your life. And then I went to a yoga teacher in 98, a guy named Bikram, and he said, and I was standing there, Avik, in his yoga studio and still in some pain in my leg. And he would say, don't worry about it, forget about it, just do the yoga. And I did not want to forget about it. I wanted to worry about it. But in a couple of weeks' time, the remaining pain that I had in my body was gone. And I realized that this same message kept coming to me. Don't worry about it. Forget about it. And what that really meant to me, and for, again, the listeners, if you're holding on to something, sometimes just letting it go shifts that energy, begins to remove those energy blocks that we hold in our body of this motion and this trauma that we may be holding.
Mm. Very truly said, yeah. Yeah. And also, I have to say that, uh, like, I mean, what do you say to someone who feels like overwhelmed by the idea of making a big life change?
Mm. Well, there's the idea that, we do everything one step at a time, and there's total validity in doing that. And
Mm.
I go back to a gentleman, Price Pritchard, and he wrote a number of these small little books, and one of them was U Squared. And he describes sitting in a restaurant and watching this fly in the window trying to get out through the window. And he would beat his wings harder, he would pound his head on the window. And he said eventually the fly just fell down on the windowsill and died. And
Mm.
sometimes we do that. We just keep trying to do these little steps to get out. And we can even see where we want to go, but for some reason we can't get there. There's some invisible barrier blocking us. Yet, if that fly had turned, 180 degrees, there was an open door right there that he could just fly out. It was 10 feet away. And I know for my life, and I know for many of the people that I've worked with too in yoga, and I don't know, I've been teaching yoga since the early 90s as well, that it's very easy to continue to like be hitting our head, hitting his head. Oh, let's just take this little step, little step. And all we do is turn around. And it's almost like a quantum leap, Avik, that yes, the small steps are important, but what if we could just take a quantum leap into something new? And I believe we can do that just by turning 180 degrees and going a different direction. So both are valid. I mean, not every small step leads to hitting our head on the window. Yet, what if we do? What if we make that turn and just make up our mind to something new?
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also on this, okay, so let's talk about the book, like the power of mindset. uh, Falling down, getting up. It
Mhm.
really dives into the idea that falling isn't a failure and it's a part of the process as well. So for many people, falling down, they feels like it's the end of the road. So how did you shift your mindset to see these setbacks as the opportunities? I
Yeah.
guess this will be a learning for the listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Great question. When I started writing the book, and there's so many rabbit holes we can go down here, so many paths we can talk about here. You know,
Okay.
as I started writing the book, the the thought and the memory came up that every child has or every person has, that
Mm.
as a child, we would be, 8, 10, 12 years old and would start walking. And we would fall, right? Maybe we're walking, holding a couch, a chair, or something. We'd fall and we'd giggle, and our parents would giggle, and we'd get back up again and just keep going, right? And we kept doing that process until we learned how to walk. Fall, get up,
Yeah.
fall, get up, fall, get up, without judgment. It's like, oh, he fell. That's okay. He'll get back up. But I think over time, as we grow, as we become a child, as we become a young teenager, as we enter our 20s, so often we hear people say, oh, so and so fell. They did this, and I don't mean physically fell. Their relationship broke up. They got in a fight. I mean, it could be all sorts of different things. They lost all their money. It could be anything. And it's easy to make judgments about those things, and it's easy for people to judge us. And they'll say, "Oh, look at so and so," or look what you just did. I can't believe you just did that. Well, it's just a fall. Again, we can get back up, but through that constant um, interaction that people have, it begins to get suppressed. We begin to get those energy blocks in our body. So how do we get those energy blocks unstuck? We begin to move. We begin to move our body in different ways. We begin to shift our mind. Again, almost if you could, it's like so many of these little things that I'm saying here right now. I want to just go right down that um, discussion because we could just focus on that one thing, just that
Mm.
falling and getting up as a child.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so when we're talking on this, so like, uh, our mess really does become our message, definitely. And if we are willing to embrace it, but sometimes people get trapped in their past stories. So for that, for them, like how can someone break free from their old identity and start fresh? What do you say?
Well, I'll mention a couple of ideas real briefly. Again, I
Okay.
alluded a moment ago about moving the body.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we're feeling depressed and down and all of that, we're just like sitting on the couch and we don't want to do anything. We don't want to move, and we eat too many barbecue potato chips or something like that. I'm a huge proponent of walking. Like after our show today, I'm going to
Uh,
walk about 2 miles. So just moving the body. The other thing is getting
mm,
into a yoga class, beginning to move the body, beginning to release the energy in the body is just so vital. And just even just simply breathing. This is something my mom taught me when I was little, and I'd run up to the back door and say, "Oh, Todd just hit me, beat me up," and mom would say, "Okay, Michael, just breathe, just pause for a moment and take a deep breath." And
true.
even one deep breath can change the energy in our body and shift the way that we are thinking. So it doesn't have to be a complicated thing. It could just be breathing. It could just be walking. It could just be doing some yoga, something simple. And I think in my experience, and not only myself but working with others, the more simple it is, the better it is.
True. Understood. Yeah. And also like you have reinvented yourself multiple times. So what's your advice for people who are afraid to get, to let go of who they are?
Well, we do, and it's common to hold on to our identity. We have this identity of a certain type of person that we think that we are.
Hmm.
We attach to our wounds, we attach to our trauma, we attach to knee pain, whatever it is, and we build our life around that experience, that trauma, that pain, that sensation that we have. And it could be a physical sensation, it could be a mental or emotional situation too. And, this comes back to what I said a moment ago about the simplicity of
Yeah.
the way that I think that we heal is simply sitting down and writing a page every morning. It could be a page about your pain, it could be a page about gratitude, but it's just starting to release what's inside so we can open up to what is next.
Exactly. That's really, really lovely. So, Michael, like, definitely, I want to continue on and on, but because there is the time constraint. But before we move, I, I have to ask, like, do you think that hitting rock bottom is necessary for the transformation, or can people create the real change without going through that extreme hardship?
Yeah, that's a really great show and a really great question. And you had a show on, I believe it was Dr. Doug Wheeler that really dived into this. This was a few days ago that you interviewed him, and I listened to that show, and it was really wonderful. So if you're listening, if you're a listener today, go back and listen to that show. Um, in some situations, we need to hit bottom before we start healing. You know, there's a number of bottoms I hit, but once I was ready to start healing, I had a higher bottom, so to speak. So I didn't have to go all the way back down again to where I had been. Now, some people need that. Some people won't change and, you know, unless we get hit really hard with something. And
Hmm.
at the same time, there is the ability to make shifts and to open up um, that we don't have to hit bottom. So I think it really depends on the individual. I think it really depends on the person in where we are in our journey.
Exactly, exactly. Perfect. Great. So, I mean, Michael, like this conversation has really, really absolutely incredible. And also, like, we have learned a lot from the show, definitely. So, I'd love to quickly ask, like, where can people find your book and learn more about your coaching and connect with you?
Well, the best place is just my website, michaelbharris.com. And I would like to give the listeners here today a special gift. If they would like a free copy of my book, absolutely free, is go to ebook.michaelbharris.com and you'll be able to go there and download the book in various formats. ebook.michaelbharris.com.
Wow, that's really, really lovely. So, dear listeners, what I'll do, I'll put the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And yeah, please go and reach out to Michael and have this, avail this free gift today. And yeah, definitely, please look into this. And also, listeners, like if you have ever struggled, if or maybe if you have ever felt like giving up, or also like if you know deep down that you are meant for more, then this episode is your sign. So Michael's journey is a proof that we are never too far gone to change our lives. But whether it's through movement, storytelling, or simply deciding to take the action, your transformation starts with one step.
Yeah.
Well, so if you have loved this episode, share it with a friend, family, or someone who actually needs to listen to this and leave us a review and let's keep this conversation going. And always remember that falling down is just a part of the process. So, what matters is that we keep getting up. So, see you next time on Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. Till then, stay happy, stay healthy, and keep smiling.